Howdy do. Mark recommended you. He said you weren't a total rookie at this sort of thing, and that's high praise coming from that man. I'm sure he briefed you on the particulars of this campaign for Las Vegas tourism, so I won't bore you with the details. Suffice to say, this is the second spot in the campaign, and we need a compositing wizard to make all of the elements work together. The assets and the edit are provided, and feel free to do what you need to make it all work together. Looking forward to seeing what you can do. Don't screw it up.
All right, here we go, team. Now it's your turn for your first actual exercise where you know what you're doing and you get to work on another spot for this awesome campaign. Let's take a look at what we've got for you. Your exercise is going to be a separate spot from the same campaign, and the overall approach is identical to what you saw in the lesson. So we're going to start with this Premiere edit that you see here, which I'll play through in a moment. And you'll import that into After Effects. And just like in that one, you can see there are three different sections here where there's a stack of layers indicating that those are going to be your main comps. Let's take a look.
Move, move, move! We know. You'd rather be in Vegas.
All right. Man, I don't know who they've got working on creative over at this agency. I heard the guy also does the voiceover at the end. Anyway, they are killing it. And so I can't wait to work on this one, except, well, you guys are going to work on this one. Going through this, I'm going to tell you what I saw after kind of looking at it for a little while. So the first shot, there's some jitter on there. We're going to take a look in After Effects at how you might simply remove that. But the main thing I would say just about the shots that don't have any extra layers in them is the only thing you might want to pay attention to is, do they match each other? So there's that exterior, here's this exterior, then, you know, of course, there's the exterior outside the car window, which isn't meant to match. It should look blown out because this camera is lighting for the inside of the car, which is much darker, so it's natural that it would look brighter out there. But it's more like, do they even feel like they're in the same world? These first three shots are all in LA, and I know that because I see a sign that says San Vicente Boulevard right there. And we're just getting our first hint of Vegas in the shot on the billboard. If I turn that layer off, you can see, you know, that the original wasn't a whole lot different, but it had this light post in front of it and a bit of a sheen across it. Needs to be recreated here over the shot of the Bellagio. This shot is in slight slow-mo. We'll take a look at that one in After Effects as well. And then this is kind of your money shot here. Now this is a bit of a hot mess right now. And the one thing I would say about it, in my lesson, I was very careful to respect the choices of the client where they place things pretty exactly. Here, I'm going to tell you that this has only kind of been thrown together, and this is much more of what you call a set extension or even almost a digital matte painting type of scenario, where you want to compose your background however you see fit with this basic idea and these basic elements, but make it all kind of sing. Now, there are a few things I need to point out, and there's one technical thing I'm going to get into when we go over to After Effects as well. But over here, I just do want to kind of point out the lighting. You see, it doesn't quite match, but I don't know that anyone's really going to pick it. So for example, notice the cast shadow is building on itself and the shadow that the Bellagio is casting on itself over here. The quality of light is a bit different. That might be okay. Also, the focal depth might be kind of a thing because it looks a little softer on this building, which is clearly more in the foreground than it does on the Eiffel Tower or the hotel back there. The tiger may be a candidate for roto brush. Seems like he's kind of fuzzy and furry. And, I think a lot of the rest of it you'll probably figure out on your own. And then the last shot, a little bit different than the one we worked on in the lesson in that, the guy doesn't have hair, so that's not going to be the main challenge. But again, what I do notice, it does look like there's some pretty shallow focus in the scene. Notice that the rear view over here is looking pretty soft, as even the back side of the car, the door there also looks soft focus. That means that the background should be, again, a bit softer. And if you remember in the O week lesson, we got into a bit of optics, and that things that are out of focus exhibit a bit of bokeh blur. And so when we're on the After Effects side, I'm just going to have a little something to say about that as well. Let's go over there now. Just as was the case in my lesson, when you use the import Premiere Pro project option, you're going to get Crazy Town over here in your timeline. And you're going to want to go ahead and take all those audio layers and pre-comp them, and then group together your visual layers that you see here at the top. Now, I mentioned the slight wobble, which you can see on this plate here, and it's a perfect case for using a tool that we may not get back into in this course much, if at all. But here, under Track and Stabilize, I'm going to choose Warp Stabilizer VFX, and I'm free to actually go elsewhere in the comp while that works in the background. But while it's in the foreground, or whether it's in the background or the foreground, but while the effect controls are up, I can also change smooth motion to no motion. And that locks off the shot, and this is meant to be a lock off. And now I have succeeded in getting rid of whatever that weird wobble was. It was just distracting. So that's a little extra, and maybe the client wouldn't have seen it, but then when you point it out to them, they'd be like, oh, thank you so much. And then we're going to go over here, and again, I'll just remind you about, do these feel like they're in the same world? And the next thing I want to point out is actually this retime shot. So I'll click on this little bracket thing here to show the retiming. This seems like there's a little bug happening here, because that's not matching. You can see that the layer is offset in time, which I can easily fix. I'll just go there. But it still doesn't reach the right distance, so I'm just going to have to slip that a little bit. Now, the extra thing here, and we're like in between frames or something, so just make sure you're good. And then the slow-mo, it's chunky, and there are tools, including Time Warp, that's built right into After Effects to do a better job with the in-between frames on this. In fact, as you probably know, you can get into that, just the default version, not motion blur, but frame blending. Thank you very much. And there are multiple settings on this. They changed the icons. I can't remember which is which, but that's off. That's frame blending, and that is in between framing. So this frame blending is using the time warp effect. And I guess that's a bit better, huh? As I said, over here, it's really up to you to turn this into a much better looking scene. Just remember, if you're going to do rotor brush on the tiger, go ahead and disable the mask first. And then this scene, again, has a dirty mask just around that foreground. And in terms of the soft focus, I think I showed you what the options are. But in terms of what's built right into After Effects, you're going to be looking at this camera lens blur effect. That would be the one that's going to create camera artifacts. And as I showed you in the O week lesson, there are a couple of third-party options that are a bit better, one of which is actually free, at least at the time that I'm recording this, so you could actually give that one a try as well in order to do a camera blur to get that background as far out of focus as it probably should be, given that the rear view is out of focus. So that's pretty much what I have for you in terms of getting you started on this. And I really look forward to seeing what you guys do with this. I think there's a lot of potential here. Now that gives you a lot of options for what to attack in this exercise. I would encourage you to focus predominantly on the one shot with the billboard. It has quite a few layers, and your main task is going to be to get them matched in the right level of edge softness, any lighting adjustments, color adjustments, and anything else, layer order, obviously, that is going to, in a basic way, make it look good. But again, this time around, this is a do your best type of situation, and most of the learning is going to be from that and from what we covered. The tiger in that shot is extra credit. It's a little tricky, but if you want to try Rotobrush for the fur, it seems to work, and you could take a crack at it. Feel free to move or resize things to make it feel better to you as a designer or look more realistic to you as a VFX artist. All right, artists, have at it. This is visual effects for sure. I believe that each shot is going to look a little bit different because each of you are going to see different ways you want to set this up and compose it, and it's pretty loose. This client didn't do such an awesome job of pre-visualizing it, and that's great. That means that all the opportunity is with you. So I look very much forward to seeing what comes out of your work on this one.